What up? Welcome back to another Malazan Book of the Fallen video. This week we're talking about the aftermath of the Siege of Pale, and things are really heating up, so let's get into it. Before we go too far, just to get a couple housekeeping items out of the way, I skipped last week's video because I was out on vacation. It was New Year's, you know, that's going to happen, but we will try and stay weekly moving forward. Number two is I started a Facebook group. I know I'm old and you guys probably aren't on Facebook, but that's the one I'm on. It's called Malazan with Iskar, Jarak. I've been loving the comments that I've been getting from you guys, and just found that the comment section isn't the best place to have a dialogue, and sometimes we want to go back and forth, so I figured the group would be a cool way for us to just like do polls. I can solicit video ideas from you guys and just have a lot more like informal chats, not necessarily related to the video, because I've been having a lot of fun. And then last is I'm recording this on the road. I'm traveling for work this week, but I wanted to get to this video while things were still fresh in my mind from the reread. And so I'll probably have the next couple just from random hotel rooms, but then we'll be back at home after that and should get back to normal. So apologies if the lighting's all janky, not that I know anything about lighting anyway, but it is what it is. Okay, so when we left off after the Siege of Pale, we had Animander Rake, who had boogied out with Moonspawn, which was all like damaged and canted to the side, all super jacked up. He definitely put in work though on the second army and on the cadre mages. So, you know, I would say that they, even though Malazan got Pale in the end, I would essentially say they fought it to a draw. The bridge burners were convinced that they'd been like set up and backstabbed, right? And so they're out investigating how high up the conspiracy goes. Is it just Taishran acting alone, or are there higher ups involved? So they struck this deal with Hairlock, who's going to go through the Warrens and try and do that investigation for them. Tattersail is obviously on board with that at this point, also believing that Taishran backstabbed them, so they leave her in possession of the Hairlock puppet. She takes it back to her quarters, and then they go off to do their own thing. So that's where we left it last time. If you want, you can watch the earlier video and then come back and watch this one. I'll post a link to it like up there or somewhere. These things are kind of sequential, so that might be helpful. Okay, so then you cue Ganoes Paran, who shows up in Pale, gets dropped off by one of those corals from the Moranth. He meets up with Tok the Younger, who takes him back into the city, and he's ultimately there for, you know, finding, investigating, and ultimately killing Sari for the things that happened back in Eco Khan. Because again, they have a suspicion that there's gods involved and that there's much more to Sari than meets the eye. So he finds the bridge burners, he goes into this bar, they're like all in there playing poker and whatever, and he, classic Paran again, I just love his personality. He's like very irreverent, he jokes about how he can't gamble with them because it wouldn't be right to take their money, which is hilarious, but tells him that he wants to see Whiskey Jack. Then he goes outside and like literally immediately within a couple of minutes he like gets stabbed to death. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that it was Sari who stabbed him, because they have this whole big dialogue after the fact about why they killed him and what the ultimate goal is. But that basically just like triggers a whole chain reaction of events and kicks off this game that's much deeper than what we originally thought. And so that's really the catalyst for everything that comes next in the rest of the books. Paran basically goes to the gates of hell. It's called the gate, you know, Hood's Gate, basically, which is the gateway into Hood's realm, who's the god of death. He's met there by two gods who are twins, a guy and a girl, brother and sister, who basically work out a deal to prevent him from ultimately dying. They are in opposition to Shadow Throne ultimately, and so because Sari is a puppet of the Shadow Realm, they're not down for letting Paran get killed. They want to foil the plans by keeping him in the game. But it just kind of opens up this whole new world where it's not just kind of the chess pieces moving around on the kind of mortal soil with Tattersail versus Taishran and the bridge burners and all the kind of empire political dynamics happening, but there's a whole nother level where these gods are actually getting involved. But he's met at the gates by Oppen, who's this kind of pair of twins who are the gods of chance and luck, and they basically opt to keep him in the game and work out a deal with the kind of guardian of Hood's Gate to take somebody else and send Paran back. Before the twins take off, they bless his sword ultimately, or like enchant his sword, which he randomly got like 3 years ago and named Chance. But that becomes their kind of tool by which they're going to use him in the mortal world. This time the Hounds of Shadow start showing up, so Oppen gets the heck out of there, right? And then Shadow Throne comes and finds Paran, hasn't passed through the gate yet, and Paran basically says, some other god save me who doesn't like you, I'm working against you now. And Shadow Throne's like, well, I can fix that, bro, pretty easily. But Paran convinces him ultimately to leave him in the game because it's easier to keep an eye on him because he knows who he is rather than killing him off, and he knows that somebody else is just going to take his place, and then Shadow Throne will have no idea who that is. So really takes it from like two-dimensional checkers up to three-dimensional chess, because we see that there's this kind of whole strategic game being played at the god level in addition to all the stuff that's down at the kind of mortal level. So while Paran was getting stabbed to death and doing all this stuff in the underworld and everything, the bridge burners go out to look for Sari because they don't know where she's at, and Fiddler has this bad sense that something really bad is about to happen. Whiskey Jack goes up and talks to Dujek One Arm about the future, basically, and the plans for the squad and the bridge burners, etc. Ultimately, it comes out that Dujek's getting a lot of pressure to disband the bridge burners, and he ensures everybody that he's going to take care of them, and that that's what his real priority is. He's definitely shows a lot of loyalty, I think, to the Empire, and is like, you know, at one point Fiddler says, dude, just say the word and we'll like all rebel and basically put you up on the throne, no problem. Dujek's not into that, right? He doesn't really want to get any prestige, or he's not in it for his own ego or anything like that, but at the same time he has this kind of deep loyalty to his soldiers and to justice and the cause and whatever, and so if he's pushed far enough or they try and make him do wrong in his mind by the people that he's with, then he will eventually turn on a dime. And it's just a really cool snapshot into his character, right? The army is like basically there, Whiskey Jack and Fiddler saying, if you want it, it's yours, you can have it. And he's like, no, I don't want it. He just kind of wants to do the right thing. Just such a cool character. But while they're talking to Dujek, the other bridge burners in Whiskey Jack's squad are out. They actually find Ganoes Paran dead in this alley. They kind of make some jokes like, oh, that was quick, but then realize he's actually back to life. They get him healed up, right? They have Mallet heal him up and put him in Tattersail's care, essentially, because they kept going back and forth, obviously, to interface with Tattersail over Hairlock to find out what the puppet's finding out in all the warrens and stuff. And so they take Paran over there and leave him with her. It's kind of weird, right? Because they don't have any love for the officer corps, but I think you know, when Quick Ben realizes that Paran was killed by an agent of Shadow, most likely Sari, it's kind of like enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. And so they decide to keep him in the game, and that's why they give him to Tattersail to look after. And then they basically take off to Darujhistan to undertake this big mission there, which is, you know, what they were sent for. Whiskey Jack thinks they're going there to die and that they're totally being set up, but they're going to go anyway and try and do something. Okay, and then after they bounce, we get all these interactions with Hairlock, who keeps coming back from the Warrens to Tattersail's room. He's like getting increasingly insane. That comes from using the Warren of Chaos, and that kind of eats away at your brain, obviously, because it's like one of these gnarly, dangerous Warrens to be in. And then also, just the fact that his soul has been put into a puppet tends not to do good things for your psyche. And so he's like there coming back. He's like getting increasingly aggressive. He's threatening Tattersail all the time. And he's been actually going through the Shadow Realm as well. So he's going through all these different Warrens trying to figure out what's going on in this investigation, quote unquote, if he's actually, you know, honestly pursuing an investigation or not. But touches on Shadow Realm. Amonis and Cotillion are pissed off. They send the Hounds after him, and one night Gear tracks him basically back to the apartment where Tattersail lives. And Gear's this Hound of Shadow who's like this massive hound dog, gnarly, scary dog. They said, I think, the shoulders of the dogs are like head high with human beings, so they're just like massive dogs. Chases the puppet into Tattersail's room. Neither Hairlock nor Tattersail were really able to do much in the way of defense, but right at that perfect moment, Paran wakes up from his like coma that he's in and uses this like enchanted sword chance to actually stab Gear and sends him howling away, tail tucked between the legs, all that good stuff. And that like really shocks Hairlock, who totally freaks out. Tattersail's wiped out because she was using like everything she had to fend off this hound, and so they actually switch roles where she was taking care of Paran for a long time. Now he's like kind of nursing her back to health. And this is basically about the time when Adjunct Lorn shows up on the scene. So Tok the Younger goes out on the plane to collect her and escort her back to Pale in the aftermath of the battle. Totally saves her ass. She was totally getting attacked, and he like rolls up super G status, bow and arrow, like takes out 4 people on horseback while he's like galloping at full speed. It was like so sick, but totally saves her, takes her back. She's traveling with the Talon Imas, Onos to Ulan, and they have like this whole big dynamic arc in the story that's actually one of my favorites. Super real, super gut crush, but she showed up to kind of take out Sari and do whatever else is involved in her plans. She meets up with Taishran, who's totally like trash talking Dujek, and she's like, dude, are you an idiot? He has so much loyalty and he's like the best of the best in terms of just moral character, judgment, leadership, all that. Like, if we drive him away and make him rebel, then that's on us and we're the idiots. Taishran was like, yeah, forget him, we'll crush him, whatever. And she's like, dude, if that happens, then the Empire is toast. But then she kind of calls a leadership meeting of all of the Malazan contingents in Pale for this big dinner. We learned that she has it out for Tattersail big time. When she was a kid, Tattersail was in charge of a mage squad that went through and basically lost control and went crazy and killed all these people, including Lorn's family. So she's super pissed. She starts questioning her all about those events. Tattersail basically just like fesses up, and she challenges her to, or says she's going to sentence her to death. She says that's fine. They say, well, you can't do that because she's a mage and blah, blah, blah. And then Tattersail says, no, it's fine. You can duel me, knowing full well that she only has her magic and that Lorn has a sword that's immune to magic. So she'll essentially die. Tattersail just like rolls over on her back basically and shows her belly. No problem. It was pretty gnarly. But then ultimately Dujek and Taishran both step in and go, look, we all are like guilty at this table of like crimes against humanity or war crimes or whatever. You can't be acting out of like personal feelings of anger. You're the adjunct to the Empress. You've got to like act on her behalf and kind of get rid of all your own personal gripes that you have. And like, dude, she turns on a dime and is immediately like cold as ice. Like, yep, you're totally right. Goes into a dinner and starts like asking about events on the ground, which is like totally freaks them out because they're like, dude, this chick is a machine. She had like a slip for a second, but then she's right back to just stone cold killer. She asks them about what happened, why the Hounds of Shadow were there, because she's obviously got deep suspicions about Shadow given everything that's going on with Sari. Tattersail kind of gives her the whole spiel as much as she can without revealing that she kind of has this deal with the bridge burners or that she's got Ganoes Paran down in her bedroom. It seems believable. Taishran says, yeah, that seems believable. Lorn looks to Tok the Younger and says, you're the Claw. You're kind of like the secret assassin spy person. Like, you're the one who can tell us if she's telling the truth. And Tok straight up lies for her, for Tattersail, and says, yep, everything's legit. It was just really cool to kind of see that he's, you know, straddling all these different worlds of being part of the Second Army and the Bridge Burners, being a Claw, and therefore working for the Empress, and you could just see that he kind of went for the side of his brotherhood, right? The camaraderie that comes with all the battles that you go through with these people. Ultimately, you just get keyed into like basically the soldiers and the mage cadre have been forged together. They're loyal to each other, and Tok really sees himself more as part of the Second Army and the Bridge Burners than he does as part of the Claw. Just super cool to see how all that camaraderie comes together, because for me, the friendships and the relationships and just how tight those bonds are what make that kind of plot really sing, and why you even care about the plot in the first place. It's at this time as well at the dinner where we find out Lorn also has much bigger plans than just wiping out Sari, right? It's really kind of like a systematic cleansing of the old guard because they like inspire these feelings of divided loyalty. It's not necessarily a malicious thing, but it's just like straight up, again, stone cold political calculation that we need 100% unity behind the new Empress, and we can't have all these old factions, even if people like Whiskey Jack or Jack and stuff like that aren't kind of going for power themselves. Other people are looking to them as leaders and kind of as representations of that old guard. And so with the exception of Jack, she wants to kind of get rid of the whole, former upper echelons during the former emperor's reign. And that basically means taking out the bridge burners and anybody else who is linked to the old emperor. So then Lorn eventually decides she needs to dip out and go to her mission in Darujhistan, which is what she's there for in the first place. Tattersail says, you know what, I gotta go and follow her, help the bridge burners because I'm part of this now. And so she basically takes off and leaves Ganoes Paran in the care not in the care, but she links him up with Tok the Younger, essentially, and they get sick of waiting around for Tattersail to come back and report in and all that stuff, and eventually they take off after Tattersail to follow her to Darujhistan and hopefully help the bridge burners so the Paran can kind of pay this debt that he feels he owes them after kind of working for Lorn and feels like he somewhat betrayed them or whatever. So yeah, that's basically the end of Act 1 for Gardens of the Moon. I skipped around a bit and included some of the Darujhistan chapters or some of the mission chapters and skipped over the Darujhistan bit just because I think it flows better if you stick with them until you get outside of Darujhistan. So we learned a couple of critical things throughout this first act of the book. Number one is that Shadow Throne and Cotillion are essentially out for revenge against Lassine. That's what their primary objective is. We learn that Tok the Younger is a straight up G, bow status. We learn that Lorn has a much deeper plan than just taking out Sari. It's not just Sari. She's got obviously a much bigger agenda, including all of the bridge burners and other folks as well. We find out that there's like this whole other three-dimensional god chess game playing. I think Shadow Throne realizes that at the same time as well. I'm curious, let me know in the comments, what do you think? Is this when his kind of bigger 10-book arc style plan started coming together, or was this really something that started all the way back in Path to Ascendancy? It seems kind of like he wasn't really aware of this bigger game being played until he realized Oppen was in the game too, but then again, like, you go back to Path to Ascendancy and it seems like he was playing like a much longer game there. So I'm curious to know what you think about that, or hit me up in the new Facebook group and we can chat about it in there. Let me know what you think about the book up till this point in time too. I personally love this kind of first third of the book, but really what we've done in the last 3 or 4 videos is all just like the first 10 chapters. So there is a lot crammed in, but it's definitely just a lot of fun, even with all the different things going on. But let me know, what did I miss? What should other people know about this kind of first chunk of the book to really set the stage for everything else that happens through the rest of the 10 books? I'm curious to know what your feedback is. You guys always have such killer comments for me, and I really appreciate it. I love seeing how tight-knit the Second Army is, and just seeing how, Tattersail felt for the soldiers under her, how they were loyal to her, how Tok chose the bridge burners over being loyal to the adjunct and the Empress. You're just really seeing those kind of bonds of brotherhood that come together with kind of fighting and putting your life on the line with people so many times over, that even though you're from kind of different factions of the Empire, that your bond is actually to each other. And I think that's a theme that threads throughout all the books in this whole entire world, that again, the relationships are just so meaningful and important to these people, and that really underlies most of what you see happen from a plot standpoint. For me, that's just, even though we're in a world of magic and warrens and all this stuff, it just keeps it super real and super relatable. So yeah, that's where we'll leave it for this week. Next week we'll pick up in Darujhistan and start setting the stage for that and everything that happens out in the Gadrobi Hills, which is a really fun segment of the book. And so I'm excited to dive in to that with you. I look forward to seeing some of you guys in that Facebook group. Make sure to like this video so the YouTube gods promote it to every potential Malazan reader that we can touch. Make sure to click subscribe if you like the content. Click that notification bell so that you never miss an upload. And until then, happy reading.